So welcome everyone. And David is now going to do our prelude music. David Norton.
Good morning, all. The music I'll be doing today is all music which was done on a BBC children's show called Tales of the Riverbank. It was a very popular children's show in the early 1960s, and it told the story of Hammy the hamster and GP the guinea pig and Robbie the rabbit and such, all children's stories. And the music was all classic guitar material from the early 1800s, so I'll be doing selections from that. It seemed like something Tales of the Riverbank ties in real well with our water theme today.
Good morning. I'm Scott Renshaw, and it's my privilege to serve as a member of the Board of Trustees here at South Valley Unitarian Universalist Society. My pronouns are he, him, and his. Come, whoever you are welcome here. No matter your age, your size, the color of your eyes, your hair, your skin, you are welcome here. No matter your gender, whom you love, how you speak, or whatever your abilities, you are welcome here. You are welcome here whether you come with laughter in your heart or tears. You are welcome here. No matter what you have experienced in the past, no matter what awaits you in the future, you are welcome here. Whether you believe in God all of the time, or some of the time, or none of the time, you are welcome here. This is a community of open minds, loving hearts, and willing hands. You are welcome here at South Valley Unitarian Universalist Society.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, well, I did unmute myself.
Click the blue button.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry. Our opening hymn is Earth Was Given as a Garden. You'll recognize the tune. It's Blue Boat Home. David and I will perform it. Lyrics will be in the chat box. Everyone will be muted, but please sing along at home if you would like.
All right. Thank you so much, Mary and David. That was beautiful. We're going to now light our chalice. So Marilyn is going to put the chalice lighting words in the chat box. If you have a small candle or chalice of your own, we welcome you to light it with us, whether real or virtual. And Tammy is going to unmute everyone. Feel free to stand if you would like, as we all take our chalice lighting, say our
You want
chalice
to do the
lighting
chalice lighting?
We light this chalice for the warmth of love, the light of truth, and for the energy of action.
I like that. Oh, I love that. That what, you? No, that was when we had a,
So welcome everyone again, and I would like to welcome you to our South Valley Unitarian Universalist Society. We are an intentionally diverse religious community, and all are welcome here. We would like to extend an especially warm welcome to those of you who are visiting us for the first time. We're so glad that you could be here. We would love to get to know you. Our greeter today, Marilyn, is going to drop our connection card into the chat box for any of our newcomers so you can be connected to our community. This is a caring, supportive community, and during this time of physical distancing, we are working to be creative on how we take care of each other. A group of members are actively reaching out to folks in our community and will continue to do so while we are in this pandemic. The pastoral care card has been put on our website and is in the link that Marilyn is going to put in the chat box. All of our online services are intergenerational. Our RE gatherings are taking place in a separate time most weeks. To find out more about the RE classes or religious education classes, review the Happenings newsletter and contact Rebecca Britt, the Director of Religious Exploration, at her email address that Marilyn is going to put in the chat box. To keep updated on activities that are part of South Valley community, we encourage you to use the Google Calendar on the South Valley website. If there are activities that you know of that are not on the calendar, or you would like to host a group gathering, please use the reservation form on the website or contact Cindy Martin, our administrator. Although we are physically separate, we are still connected. So next, during this time, we're going to share the warmth of community. So please take this time to say hello to each other in the chat box and say where you are joining us from, and you will also be unmuted.
greetings. Hello. Morning. Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
We got Miss Valley, Minneapolis, awesome. Saratoga Springs, wonderful.
Yay.
Welcome everyone. That was beautiful. Thank you so much, David. So now is our time for all ages, and I have a story that I am going to share with everyone. So let me go ahead and pull this up for all of us to enjoy. All right. So this story, let me just go back one. There we go. This story is called The Tin Forest. It is by Helen Ward and illustrated by Wayne Anderson. There was once a wide, wind-swept place, near nowhere and close to forgotten, that was filled with all the things that no one wanted. Right in the middle was a small house with small windows that looked out on other people's garbage and bad weather. In the house lived an old man. Every day he tried to clear away the garbage, sifting and sorting, burning and burying. It's a lot of work for him. And every night the old man dreamed. He dreamed he lived in a forest full of wild animals. There were colorful birds, tropical trees, exotic flowers, toucans, tree frogs, and tigers. You can see the book that he was reading, he's holding as he dreams. But when he awoke, the world outside was still the same. One day, something caught the old man's eye, and an idea planted itself in his mind. The idea grew roots and sprouted. Feeding on the garbage, it grew leaves, it grew branches, it grew bigger and bigger. Under the old man's hand, a forest emerged. A forest made of garbage, a forest made of tin. It was not the forest of his dreams, but it was a forest just the same. He's made a clockwork bird there. And there's his forest he's created with toucans and tigers, blooming flowers, trees, lizards, frogs, insects, all created from other people's trash. Then one day across the barren plain, the wind swept a small bird. The old man spilled crumbs from his sandwich onto the ground. The bird ate the crumbs and perched to sing in the branches of a tin tree. But the next morning, the visitor was gone. All day, the old man walked through the silence, and his heart ached with emptiness. That night, by moonlight, he made a wish. There he's sitting with the clockwork tiger. In the morning, the old man woke to the sound of birdsong. The visitor had returned, and his mate had come with him. The birds carried seeds in their beaks. They dropped them to the dry ground. Green shoots broke through the earth. You can see the old man is watering the shoots where they're blooming. Soon the song of birds mingled with the buzzing of insects and the rustle of leaves. Time passed. Small creatures appeared, creeping among the forest of trees. Wild animals slipped through the green shadows. The birds have a little nest with little baby toucans in it. And there's a real tiger now in the forest, and other birds. Now you can see the forest really coming to life with lizards and frogs and bugs. The toucans look very happy. Flowers are blooming. And you can see the clockwork bird and the clockwork tiger and the clockwork lizard, all with all the new arrivals to the forest. There's a snake. There's even a monkey up near the top, hiding. There was once a forest near nowhere and close to forgotten that was filled with all the things that everyone wanted. Right in the middle was a small house with small windows, and in the house lived an old man who never stopped dreaming. That is the end. So thank you so much, you guys, for listening to the story and looking at those beautiful illustrations. I wanted to share that with you guys largely because I adore the illustrations, and also because I think it's a great one for talking about caring for our earth and kind of not giving up. So now Tucker Gurney is going to share a reading with us. If you want to unmute yourself, Tucker.
Hi there, this is Tucker Gurney, and this morning I'm going to struggle with my head a little bit. I'm going to read to you some excerpts from Falter by Bill McKibben. I don't know, no one knows, if it is still possible to fundamentally alter our trajectory. Climate change is far advanced, and the march of some of these new technologies seems as rapid as it is unregulated. But no one knows that it is impossible either. And so the last section of this book will be about resistance, about the tools and ideas that might help us keep global warming and technological mania within some limits, and in the process, keep the human game recognizable, even robust. And luckily, we have two relatively new inventions that could prove decisive if fully employed. One is the solar panel, and the other is the nonviolent movement. Obviously, they are not the same sort of inventions. The solar panel and its cousins, the wind turbine and the lithium-ion battery, is hardware, while the ability to organize en masse for change is more akin to software. Solar power is an interesting advance in that it is less powerful than the fuel it replaces, and in certain ways harder to use. Where coal and oil and gas can be gathered in a few places and shipped around the world, sun and wind must be collected from 1 million different locations and then shared across the grid. Renewable energy is omnipresent but also diffuse, nothing like the concentrated package of chemical energy in a lump of coal or a liter of oil. But these limitations also come with real and offsetting advantages. While some people will grow rich putting up windmills and solar panels, they won't make money on an Exxon scale because you can't charge for the sun. That's why Exxon hates solar. You can put up a solar panel and the energy comes for free, which to the corporate mind is the stupidest business plan ever. The cash you spend for energy stays close to home. In that sense, solar power could be a technology of repair, social as well as environmental. Even as it helps heal the atmosphere, it can help reduce that chunk of inequality that derives from the control of oil and gas deposits. In neither case can it do the job entirely. There are other sources of inequality, just as raising cows and cutting forests contribute to climate damage alongside power plants. But it's a start, and so the fact that it doesn't represent a quantum leap forward in human power is a feature as well as a bug. It fits better with the human game. You can say much the same for nonviolence, the other technology I want to posit as a practical hope. It works hand in hand with innovations such as solar panels. In fact, because if we are to build the potential will to deploy renewable energy fast enough, we'll need a bulldozer for reshaping the zeitgeist. That's the job of movements. I believe that nonviolence is one of the signal inventions of our time. Perhaps if we are lucky, the innovation for which historians will most revere the 20th century. Solar energy and nonviolence are technology less of expansion than of repair, less of growth than of consolidation, less of disruption than of healing. They posit that we've grown powerful enough as a species, and that the job now is to make sure that power is shared and controlled.
Thank you so much, Tucker, for sharing that. So it is our practice at South Valley to share our Sunday worship offerings with a charitable organization that aligns with our principles and values. For July and August, we are sharing our offering with Black Lives Matter Utah, a local group that has been working diligently to stop police brutality. They are fighting for police accountability and transparency and are pushing for community-controlled civilian police review boards and police reforms. They also create inclusive spaces for every marginalized group, offer a summer camp for Black and Brown children, and are constructing a mobile Black History Museum. South Valley now has an app for giving. We have an account on Givelify. This allows South Valley to continue receiving funds to support the work of the South Valley community during this pandemic. We're invited to give to us using the link that Marilyn is going to put in the chat box. Or you can go to your phone and download the app. Using this app will help South Valley tremendously during this time of physical distancing. Marilyn is going to put our offering words in the chat box. Let us read these words together. We are this church. We are its hands, its heart, its voice. Together we share the wealth of this community and sustain it with our gifts.
Thank you, David. For all we have received and all that we have found the courage to give, may we be truly thankful. May these gifts be a blessing to South Valley and Black Lives Matter, Utah. It is now my privilege to introduce our speaker for this morning, Cynthia B. She is the outreach coordinator for Jordan Valley Water Conservatory District for the past 10 years. And if she wants to give you any more of an introduction, I will leave that up to her. Your turn, Cynthia.
Okay. All right. Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So I just want to say hello. It's been really interesting to join you this morning for services. I really appreciate that. I actually live in the West Jordan area, so that's kind of my general location. And I am going to switch over to a PowerPoint as we talk a little bit about local scapes, which is something I'm super, super proud of. Our team has worked really hard to come up with a solution that's going to work for Utah, that's practical, and it's something that everyone can implement. So with that, I will share my screen. I believe that's it. Let me go back to the top. And slideshow. Beginning. And okay, I hope I've got the right one up. So I definitely don't want to take too long in explaining this. So if you've not yet heard of Localscapes, it's a design style that our team of experts developed specifically for Utah, understanding that we've got to find a way to use less of our drinking water in our landscapes and to create landscapes that are, more functional. And so that was the goal of Localscapes. That's our general instructor. So, when we think about how we want to use our yards, these are the things that we're thinking about, these types of activities. And in order to accomplish that, we're doing a lot of this and a lot of this, and it's not really bringing us to the right end. We just don't live in the climate where Mother Nature waters everything for us, except for our Minneapolis friend. For the rest of us, we've got to use sprinkler systems, and that changes everything. And so we want to be more efficient in the way that we're utilizing these things. So I'm going to skip through this quickly because we're on the fast track for the class. But basically, the realization came that Utah's unique. And the more we tried to push xeriscape, too many people in Utah call that zeroscape, and they have a totally different impression of what it's supposed to be. And really, it's just about having good quality local landscapes. And so that's why our team realized we've got to do something different. We need a design style that matches the way Utahns actually want to live. The example that you're looking at right here, it looks like any other house in a neighborhood. It doesn't stand out oddly or strangely. There's still some lawn, and yet this particular landscape needs 60% less water than its neighbors on either side. That's really significant. So we can actually, through Localscapes, have a very traditional looking yard without the environmental demands that come from doing a traditional style. As you see here, they've got that English style here, and then we've got our Utah Localscape, and there's not that much difference in terms of how they look when you drive by, but the way that we're using plants, the type of plants, the layout, that's where the benefit's coming from. And so that Utah Localscape needs about 60% less water and work than that English style that is what kind of the visual standard of beauty that we've all been raised with. And that's, a thing that's time has passed, really. So we had a focus group because we thought we knew what we were doing. We're like, I'm a landscape architect. We have different professions involved with Localscapes and just with getting the public to save water in general. But what we didn't realize is we were speaking different languages. We were very concerned with water efficient, which is what xeriscape is concerned with. But when we asked the public, what do you need your yard to do for you? These are the items that they gave us. They're willing to be water efficient so long as these other objectives are met. And we realized that xeriscape wasn't really developed to meet those objectives. And so that's why Localscapes came along. So what are the 5 elements of a Localscape? You can actually see this exact plan that I'm showing you right now. It is an exhibit we just completed at the Conservation Garden Park in West Jordan. So you can actually physically walk through this and experience it for yourself. So the very first thing was the recognition that lawn, if you're going to have lawn, it's got to be a central open shape. And even those that choose to go lawnless, you still need an open central shape in order to organize the yard. Second was gathering areas. Third, we need activity zones. Then we're going to connect these things with paths. And then the leftover spaces become the planting beds. And this is exactly the opposite of how most people landscape. It's just very different of what is traditional. And that's because traditionally, all the gardening books and such come from places outside of Utah where they don't have sprinkler systems and they don't have the same considerations. And that's why it kind of falls apart when we get it here. So we made that easy to understand. So this was the drawing that we did for the Localscapes house, the three-dimensional, architectural. And this is what it looked like last fall, right after we got it installed. It's actually filled in quite a bit since then. And the garden itself is open for visitation and it's free. So if you haven't been to Conservation Garden Park yet, it's about the middle of the Salt Lake Valley in West Jordan, near Gardner Village on 13th West and 8275 South. It's free. Come and enjoy it. It's open Monday through Saturday, 8 to 8. Okay. The other problem with landscaping is that they assume that everyone is starting with a blank slate. If you ever read a book on landscape design, it assumes that everyone's in that new construction blank slate zone. And what we found is about 80% of the people we teach have existing yards that they're trying to modify and improve, and they can't do it all at once. So the way I want you to think about how to complete it in phases over time is, which one of these are you starting at? I'm going to show you what we're going to do to end up kind of all in that same spot. So in new construction, you're going to start from the center and work your way out. And existing, you're going to carve away from those edges and work your way in. So now we're starting to make some changes in these yards. So we went ahead and added the central open shape in the front and backyard on that new construction. Over here on the existing, we took out the park strip. That's a great first project. And now we are adding the activities or the gathering areas. We did it all at once on the new construction. On the existing, it didn't make sense to put that fire pit in, just sticking it into the middle of a lawn area yet. So we didn't add it yet. But we did now. So, you just keep adding these things in pieces. There's the paths. And even though we started in completely opposite positions, we were able to bring both of these yards into the same Localscapes kind of configuration. It's a really great way to increase your curb appeal. I mean, this is a pretty typical Utah yard. It's one of our Localscapes graduates from a couple of years ago. And that's how it is now. She didn't tear out everything. They just carved away at the edge of that lawn area, added other features until they brought it into this configuration. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to re-landscape your whole yard, but we need landscapes that are balanced, that offer more than just lawn. I mean, as far as pollinators are concerned, lawn is a desert. It might be green for us, but it offers them nothing that they need for survival, and that's a huge problem. So when you have a Localscape, you still have the lawn if you want it, but you also have other things that bring value and usefulness to the landscape. So, it's just creating very clear, defined zones for things. So in this particular new construction install, you can see how we've got the greenery right there. You've got two different areas of lawn, but you've also got other things to do. So you can sit down and hang out around the fire pit and observe the kids playing on the lawn. There's still that lawn. In fact, that's the number one thing I get from people. They say, oh, I can't have less lawn or there'll be nothing for kids to do. And honestly, that couldn't be further from the truth. We get 5,000 kids a year on a normal year through the Conservation Garden Park on tours. And the minute they see a path that diverges from the path they're on, they have to see where it goes. So it's also about creating more interest and uniqueness. That's one of my favorite yards. This was a Localscapes graduate, and their whole yard used to just be lawn. And they took some of the lawn out and repurposed it into additional seating area. And you'll see a few more pictures of this as we go along. And it makes an enormous difference in the way that they use the yard. You don't have to break your budget. I don't know if you're aware of Chip Drop. It's a great free local service. And so what we want people to do is, you know, what a lot of people will do is just put lawn across everything and then be like, oh, I'll fix that later. But as those of us who've lived in our homes for 20 years know, it's pretty tough to go back and fix it later. You're paying for it twice. It's just difficult. And so instead, we recommend that you put your central open shape of lawn in and then utilize this free chip drop service to cover the area that's future development until such time as you are ready to add the next thing. And our reasoning for that is then you're just adding, you know, each next thing as it comes along. All right, so let's take a quick look at this. This is what a central open shape looks like. Is that so beautiful? See how the plants give it a setting? It's like a diamond. A diamond in and of itself is beautiful. But once you put it in a setting is where it starts to glow. And that's what we're doing here. So we're using lawn not only as a greenery, but as an organizing element to give context to everything else in the landscape. When we just have lawn, when everybody's special, nobody's special. So, and this is the biggest challenge that we have, where people are thinking in just the most extreme, right? I either have this, or if I don't have this, I'm going to end up with this. And this is something that's very frightening to people because it's a xeriscape that got away from someone. And that's why we talk about this central open shape. It's an organizing element, and you've got to have a space that you've made that doesn't require a lot. So this is an example on the little bit less water-wise end. And on the more water-wise end, you would have no lawn, and we'll show you what to do there. So the big key is it's all about irrigation. And this is the thing that's never covered in design books from other places, because I don't know, they just think it's an add-on, but really sprinklers change everything. So you can see, even though we have a gentle curve on this lawn area, all the sprinklers, we can keep that overhead spray off the planting beds. And if you want to control weeds, you must control water. And we are lucky to live in a climate where we actually can do that. So, you know, just because we have more lawn doesn't mean that we're necessarily having useful lawn. So we want every inch of lawn that you have to be usable for recreation. And in a typical Utah yard, there's just lots of little weird spaces that are created that serve no value but require a lot of work. These are two beautiful homes in Riverton. And they have the same amount of lawn, but if you look at the way the lawn is laid out in each of these, when I flipped this slide up, your eye most likely went to that Utah local scape and went to that grass right in the middle. And so you basically have these, you know, all the plantings around the edges, tucking it in and drawing the eye to it. If you choose to go with materials that are not lawn, that's okay, but you still need to have some open space. And so we would use just open gravel. Ground cover, there are several ground covers that take a foot traffic. So if you don't have a lot of action in the front yard or wherever, then this is a really great alternative. This is Turkish Veronica here at the Conservation Garden Park. Right now it's just green, but it bloomed this beautiful purple color for about a month. And then there's also hardscape. This is a really great little house up in Farmington, and they've just created a circular seating area. And they get so many compliments on it as people go by. So there's different things depending on your circumstances that might work best for you. And I love this one in Salt Lake. But the key is that you've got to have a contrast. So the idea is you've got that open space that's visually open. So in this case, we used the Chat, which is a really great product that can be compacted, and that creates a front yard seating area that's also, you know, that's open space. And then in all the planting areas around, they've used a different kind of mulch. So you can very clearly see where the borders are, and that's important. Okay, so these are our best practices for those areas. Okay, oh, that's interesting. Oh, I'm going backwards. Sorry about that, you guys. Oh, no, I'm not. Whew. All right, so then, well, what do we do? If it's not lawn, then what is it? What else are we putting in the landscape? And gathering areas are key. No one ever looks at this yard and says, boy, if they just had a little more lawn, that would be fantastic. So we want to think about creating these, now this is obviously quite a few beautifully linked gathering areas. We want to think about creating those, in a way that works. And so here we've got, it's all about the ground plane and your ground surface material. That's where all of the savings of water and work come in on a local scape. So you can see if we just put the same amount of seating in here on top of lawn, we've created a problem. And that's just a maintenance problem. And, and we have those sprinklers, it really blocks them and causes issues. This is a recent Localscapes graduate in South Jordan, and they just had a grass yard before, and yet have been able to take the 5 elements of a localscape and use them to balance out the landscape. It's a great way to add curb appeal. This is a yard in Sandy that's a generic rambler, and they use the landscape to create the interest that isn't inherent in the architecture, and it works beautifully. So they've used this beautiful seating area as that open space. It makes a huge difference just by breaking these up and adding some new and interesting areas. And it can be very cost effective too. You don't have to have a huge budget in order to make this work. These are just some other ideas. So the best practices are traffic flow, correct surface materials, smooth. If you have seating areas, making sure that's smooth so that the chairs can move in and out, and then just putting it there. And if you've got an area of the yard that's kind of an awkward spot, it's probably the perfect spot for a gathering area. So activity zones are just set up and ready to go at all times, and they really help encourage the users of your home to get outside and spend some time in the landscape. So I love this one because it's such a unique idea. Those are just pool grates that they use. So it's actually been put together very inexpensively. But here's the thing too. So they have this activity zone that's already ready, at any moment to play. But it's also area that they spend very little time maintaining. And that's the secret too. By adding these different areas to your landscape, you're going to decrease the amount of work that's required to keep it looking nice. So when most of us get a play set, this is an example of how we put it in. We just kind of flop it on the lawn. And this homeowner's already experiencing the problems from that because the play set is blocking sprinkler heads. So that's where they've got the dry zone. And just watering more isn't going to fix that. And they've also got ruts in they've just got different issues. This particular play set is very little work for the homeowners. You can see that you can just breeze by that with the lawnmower on the times that you do need, the once a week mowing. And that's actually been really exciting to hear our different Localscapes homeowners talk about how they went from 45 minutes to mow an edge of front yard down to 10 minutes or less. And I have several people that time it and they send me their times, which is really fun. It's reducing maintenance. It's taking areas that might be put into grass that just where it doesn't function and creating something else there that you're going to use that's going to provide value back to you. And part of that is just giving them a place to be outside the lawn area. The whole secret in Localscapes is how we are using the ground plane and what materials we're putting on the ground plane. Now, when they get done with this and they don't need a trampoline anymore, and they haven't had to drag it all across the lawn. When they don't need that anymore, they can easily just pull it out, put in a fire pit or some other activity just to utilize that space. And so once you get your yard into a Localscapes configuration, making changes is more like redecorating than it is like rebuilding. So just consider exposure. If you're a garden, you need sun. If you're a children's area, you might need some more shade. And these are kind of the main considerations that we want to think about for activity zones. And then you're going to connect everything with paths. Isn't that lovely? I remember the first time I saw this, that gate opened and I just gasped. It was beautiful. But if you look at that and say that's too much planting, I wouldn't want that much planting. Widen out the path because the path is not, area that you have to really maintain a lot. Or maybe put a circular area in it with a bird bath or something. There's ways to do it. It's all about that balance. And if we don't put paths where they want to go, people and pets will make them. So here's Good Dog showing how to use a path properly and showing a properly placed path. And then it's about increasing curb appeal too. You know, no one can resist the beautiful call of that path as it winds around the side of the house there. And it's just practicality too. So through park strips, which we highly encourage people plant instead of with something other than lawn. And you can see this one's got a little pass-through area, right, where the cars would park. It's about reducing maintenance and improving function of the yard that had pathways. So the main importance for paths is just if it's an optional path going around the side, you can use loose materials. We're connecting our spaces, but main pathway to your front door should stay concrete. Okay, now we get to planting beds, and that's the number one question I get from people. What should I plant? And it's the idea is that that's where the design starts. It's not. It's where the design finishes. And so it's the last 10%, and it's the fun 10%. I get it. But we really want people to start focusing on creating those defined areas that we've just spoken about first. So here's a back corner of a yard where they've actually put in a secret gathering area. And then they've got beautiful plants that they've used to kind of hem it in. So, you know, in theory, you can go hide there from the kids, but I have found that they find you. And it's about curb appeal too. So if you have an area in the front yard, like this beautiful home, these folks are 90, and that seating area that you see over there, that's the hot spot every evening where they sit and chat with neighbors. And even if you choose not to sit and chat with neighbors, it looks like you might. So you get full curb appeal points for that. Reducing maintenance in planting beds. A big secret is, of course, that drip irrigation. We want to water only the plants that we want to grow. And then using a heavy coat of mulch. We do not recommend weed barrier fabric. If you use that heavy coat of mulch, 3 to 4 inches, it will dramatically reduce the amount of weeds. And even if you do get a little weed, you just grab it, pull it, and it works great. We have an entire class on irrigation, so I'm not going to get into that drip irrigation too much. It's a wonderful way to increase privacy as our lot sizes are shrinking. By local scaping, you're really creating a separation between you and your neighbors, or you can. Okay, so the best practices, we want to use Utah-friendly plants. They don't have to be native. We're okay if they're adapted, but they need to be willing to grow here without excessive amounts of water. There's just no reason to have lawn in a park strip. Drip irrigation and mulch in all planting beds, and then annuals are only for containers. And that's because they need as much water as lawn. So if you put annuals in your planting beds, you're gonna have to overwater everything else in order to keep them happy. And this is why we care. It's kind of amazing that you can have a yard that still looks lush and beautiful and yet dramatically reduce the amount of water that's being used every year to keep it that way. Would you even imagine that a quarter-acre lot uses almost 200,000 gallons of water per season? But that's exactly what's happening. And this is something that we can do. And we can do it in pieces and chunks. You don't have to do everything at once. You can increase, you can add gathering areas in your yard. You can add an activity zone until you eventually become a local scape. Okay, so that's kind of it as a whole, as an overview. These are kind of the things that are available to people. We do have classes all over the state, and we do have online courses as well. And I think I'll just show you a couple quick before and afters that are all homeowner finished jobs. So you're not going to look totally weird. I love this. These folks are so awesome. They did that right after they took my class. That was a little scary for both of us. I need to get the updated photos because it looks really incredible now. But you get the idea in general. We're still going to have the things that you want and need, but we're just going to have more things that you can utilize and enjoy. All right, that's it. That's Localscapes in a nutshell. So we invite you to take the classes. There's utahwatersavers.com. You can, in some areas, there are rebates available for completing these projects, and we're certainly happy to teach all that we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. If anyone has any questions for Cynthia, you can put it in the chat box.
We'll give people a moment or two to see if anything pops up and populates.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, UtahWaterSavers.com. Every single Utahn can qualify to get 50% rebate off of a smart controller. So for very little money, you can just change that over on your sprinkler system. And we certainly would recommend that as well.
We'll give it another minute or so.
Okay, great. If there's no questions, that's great for me. So as you walk your yard, just kind of what I hope that you got from this little class is giving you a new way to see your landscape.
Mhm.
And so as you walk your yard, you can start thinking about, is that lawn I'm even using and needing? And could I put something else there that might serve me better? And the answer is almost always yes.
So do we have a question here from Cole? How much does mulch inhibit the weeds?
Yeah, so here's the secret with the mulch. The tighter and finer the mulch, the better it works. You need at least 3 to 4 inches. And what most people do is put just enough mulch down to make the soil look brown. And so it doesn't really help with that weed control. Also, you've got to switch over to drip irrigation. If you're overhead spraying, you're putting, I get that a lot from people. If I have planting beds, I'll have weeds. Well, yes, but you're also cultivating those weeds by watering it with overhead spray and giving it 6 times more water than it needs. And that's the part that most people don't realize. And so we do have a whole best practices for planting beds. And I noticed it in my own yard. I got quite a bit of it done before the whole COVID thing struck, because we in this industry have to get our own yards done really early. And the back end of my really wide planting beds, I got all this heavy mulch in. And then, of course, COVID struck and I couldn't finish the front part of it. And the difference in weeds, even though it's all drip irrigated, the difference in the number of weeds I have where I've heavily mulched versus not, it's really surprising. I have almost no weeds back in that heavily mulched area. And in the front of the bed, I've got a bunch. So, it's just it's an important part of it for sure.
Marilyn wanted to know if you use Turkish Veronica for the park strips.
I wouldn't put Turkish Veronica in a park strip unless you have existing trees that are providing shade. If you want that same effect, I would go with red thyme. And actually on our Localscapes page on Facebook, a little while back, if you go to that page and scroll down, you'll see I posted a park strip that's all red creeping thyme. That's amazing.
We had a question about professionals that specialize with, say, pets and localscaping, like dogs.
So on localscapes.com on the website, there, if you scroll down, you'll see a whole bunch of professional partners. Those are people that we don't make any money off of them, nor they off of us, but they're people that chose on their own, that are experts in the field, to get additional Localscapes training so they can help people implement that Localscape. And so that's where I would go. I would look there for people that, may be helpful. I see we also have a question about chip drop. So chip drop is a really brilliant it's an environmental idea, but in the past, arborists, when they would take down a tree, would then have to shred the tree and then haul it to their lot or to, the landfill or whatever. And so they developed this chip drop service that you can sign up for. And the big hint is if you agree to give the driver a tip, you're more likely to get served quicker. But when they take down a tree, then all they do is they look, they shred it up, and then they look to see who has signed up that's nearby. So then they just drop it at your house instead of taking it to the landfill. And so they save a lot of gas, they save a lot of energy, and, take what someone doesn't need anymore and give it to someone that does. And it's worked out great. You're going to have a easiest time getting chip drop if there are large trees not so far from your house. If you're out in a new construction area where you need it the most, that's where you'll end up waiting the longest. So just be aware. But anyway, it's a really great way to stretch your budget. We're very aware that people don't have unlimited budgets to throw in their yards. And so we're trying to help you do the things that are going to make the biggest difference in water savings and in maintenance savings. Okay, anything else? Let's see. Nope, I think that's it. Oh, any recommendations for shade? Oh, so many. I would actually recommend that you go on conservationgardenpark.org and /plants. And we have an entire database of all the trees, shrubs, perennials that we grow at the Conservation Garden Park. There's over 1,000 plants in there. And that's a great way to help choose what will work for your yard and for your circumstances. And you can search by lots of different terms. Oh, yes, I can type that in. Anyway, so yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, well, thank you so very much, Cynthia. That was very informative, and I think all of us agree that I xeriscaped my lawn when it wasn't cool to do it back at my old house, and I've done it again. In my little place, I've created a gnome garden underneath one of my trees, which is really fun. That's kind of my focal point. Anyway, we are coming toward the end of our service now, and we have our closing hymn, which Marilyn will drop into the chat box. Our world is one world. We're only doing verses 1, 2, and 4. So if you get lost, just drop down, pretend 3 doesn't exist. Our world is one world. What touches one affects us all. The trees that wash us round about, the clouds that cover us, the rains that fall. The world is one world. The thoughts we think affect us all. The way we build our attitudes with love or hate, we make a bridge or wall. Our world is one world, just like a ship that bears us all, where hate and fear breed many holes, but where our hearts can hear a different call.
Thank you so much, Mary and David. And thank you again, Cynthia. That was a wonderful talk. I love going to the garden. If any of you have never been out to the conservation garden, it's a really great place to go and get really good ideas, or simply to go and enjoy. So we are going to do our chalice extinguishing, and Marilyn is going to put the chalice extinguishing words in the chat box. And Tammy will unmute all of us so that we can all join in this together. You're welcome to stand if you would like to, and say our chalice extinguishing words together. We extinguish this chalice, but not the warmth of community, the light of truth, or the energy of action, holding each other for the heart, so we meet again. So we can watch the card. Thank you so much, everyone. We will be doing social time and breakouts that Marilyn will be hosting. I think we're probably going to do, a little break, Mary, before we do that?
Yes, probably come back, give us about a 10-minute break.
Quarter of.
Quarter of. So quarter of 12.